Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Economy by Aman Soni. In today's news hour, we'll be discussing the important articles related to economy from the Hindu newspaper. In page 1, we don't have any news related to economy. Let's go to the editorial page. Let's discuss this article. We know that the consumer price index measures the price changes of goods and services for the retail customer. It is a measure of inflation. The CPI is released by the NSO. And the prices of goods are not of all the goods. It is a basket of commodities. That is, certain goods are included for the measurement and certain weights are assumed for the measurement, and on those goods the prices are measured. But there are few issues with the measurement. What are those? We can get questions like, what goods constitute this basket of commodities, and is it based on some specific survey, or just the economic experts decide what are those goods that are, and how are the weights that are assigned? And we say that this measures the inflation for the common man. Who is that common man? So this led to a debate upon the measurement of the inflation. Is the inflation measure inclusive enough? In the United Kingdom, activists observed that the consumption patterns vary across differently between the classes. The consumption pattern of a rich person and the goods and services that he consumes is totally different from a poor person based on his income levels. And when the prices of goods and services are increasing, it is the vulnerable sections that are more impacted, because the higher class people, they would have some savings, but the poor person, he would not have any savings. So when the prices of goods and services increases, the basket of goods and services that the poor person consumes will get more affected compared to the rich person who has more savings and investments. So the inflation would affect different classes of the society differently. Until now, we have distinct series of CPIs, that is consumer price index for the industrial workers, consumer price index for the agricultural laborers, consumer price index for the rural laborers, and the consumer price index at the all India level. This consumer price index at the all India level is used by the RBI for inflation targeting, and consumer price index for the industrial workers, which is released by the Labor Bureau, is used as a measure for increasing the dearness allowance for all the central government employees. So this point is important from prelims perspective, because it is not the consumer price index at all India level that is used for calculating dearness allowance, but it is the consumer price index of industrial workers that is being used for calculating the dearness allowance. And for the all India CPI, the NSO releases it. For the CPI industrial workers, it is released by the Labor Bureau. NSO also releases the consumer food price index and separate index for rural, urban, and the combined level. The combined is the consumer price index at all India level. So a British journalist started investigating into the impact of inflation on the poor and vulnerable sections of the population. She observed that during the pandemic, the impact that inflation had on the low income families and the market goods that the low income families consumed tremendously increased. But the official inflation of the UK, which was released by their official missionary, was around 5.4%, which was a gross underestimate. She takes an example of rice for that. The cost of rice during the pandemic increased by around 344 percentage. But if you look at the overall price of the inflation, it is just 5.4 percentage. So she realized that the inflation measures that are official, they are skewed and unfair for the poor people, because the inflation measures are based on certain assumptions and it doesn't exactly reflect the ground reality that the poor person would be facing. For that, she came up with a different index called the Weimsboots index, which would measure the inflation of high level prices which the vulnerable section would consume. This Weimsboot index is based on a novel wherein, in a 1993 novel called The Men at Arms, the writer Terry Pratchett, he writes that about a theory called the Samwine Boots theory. It defines the socio-economic unfairness. He takes the example of boots, that is shoes, leather boots, to explain the impact of inflation. For example, a very good leather boot, a shoe, which might cost 2000 rupees for a rich person, is affordable. But a poor person would not be able to purchase that 2000 rupee leather boot, but he would go for a shoe which is worth 200 rupees. He says, in the long run, because of the quality of the leather boot of 2000 rupees, this leather boot lasts for 5 years. But this 200 rupees shoe which he purchases, it might get torn after say 2 months. And the poor person has to purchase a new boot again. If we calculate that way, if you look at the whole picture of 5 years, this poor person would have spent more than the rich person on shoes. So because of the affordability factor, the poor person ends up paying more in the long run because of the high quality of goods which is not able to afford. This leads to socio-economic unfairness. And the solution for this is having the index of goods which measures the impact of the inflation correctly. The statisticians need to revise the goods according to the changing consumption pattern so that the inflation measures would reflect the reality. This Weimsboot index, it records the prices of low cost staple foods over the time, and it tries to demonstrate the impact of inflation on the poor people. So the author says that probably if that is successful, maybe even other countries could adopt a inflation measure like this. Now let us go into the details of CPI All India Index. Currently, the base year is 2012 for the CPI All India Index. It has various groups like food and beverages, tobacco and intoxicants, clothing and footwear, housing, fuel and light, miscellaneous. For prelims, it is important for us to know the weightage of the combined index. For example, if you observe, the food index is given the highest weight. So we might get a question that the following items are given the highest weight, or we might get a question on arrange from ascending order or descending order. And if you look at the differential between rural and urban areas, we should know how the CPI measurements are made. It is not feasible for the government to measure the inflation from each and every household and each and every village in India. So for that, in statistics, we go for sampling. Instead of collecting the data from each and everything, we choose randomly from out of the whole data set, and we choose a sample, and based on the sample we make the index. For example, the CPI is based on the samples of two villages from every district of India when it comes to rural area, around the main towns which are collected for the urban areas. The weightage is based on the consumer expenditure survey done by the NSSO 10 years back. So the author also says that the weights that you are assigning and the basic prices that you are measuring with, they are 10 years old. The current indexes that we are using may not reflect reality as such. So the better thing would be we have to regularly revise the weights and measures, because in 10 years time the income levels of people would vary, and fashion would vary, the tastes and preferences of consumers would vary. So the inflation measures which we use for policy, it has to reflect the reality. For that, we have to regularly take surveys and keep revising the weights and prices of the index, so that the policy rate which we depend on should be reflecting the reality. This article, regulation not prohibition, we have previously discussed in the news hour about how Karnataka banned online games, and the court said that you cannot have a blanket ban on all the online games. You have to allow the skill based games. The article talks about the same thing. We need not read it, we can skip it. In the business page, here we don't need to read the details of what the finance minister has spoken, but we need to know the concepts. For example, the situation in Russia and Ukraine would have an impact on the oil prices, and the increasing crude oil prices would have impact on the domestic crude imports, because of which we can import inflation. If the prices of crude is high, the cost of petrol and diesel would be high, because of which the logistical cost and the cost of manufacturing input cost of goods and services would be high. That will lead to higher final output cost, which means that there would be some inflation in the future. And also the policy by the US Federal Reserve, and we discussed about the bond yields and bond tapering by the US Federal Reserves. So once you are clear about the concept, you need not go through it again and again. You can just skip the article. We just discussed how increase in crude oil prices would lead to inflation. Here the article heading discusses the same thing. Retail prices of fuel may rise in the future, and it would have inflation impact in the future. We need not go into too much detailing of the LIC IPO. We just need to know the concepts. And every once in a while RBI comes out with the notices and regulations about unauthorized wallets and how it would protect the customers, because one of the mandates of RBI, apart from being a banker's bank, managing the finances of the government, controlling the inflation, the RBI also has to do the job of consumer education. So that is why RBI comes out with notices like this. Here, center may auction more debt in financial year 2022. Because of the increased budget, the center would want to go for more borrowing. For this, it would be borrowing more in the financial year. And because of the bond yields falling, the RBI can borrow more now. We don't need to go into the details of individual companies. We can skip those. In the text and context, we have an article relation to the LIC IPO. Here we have a concept. The article discusses about how LIC has come up with the draft red herring prospectus. So we need to understand what is a prospectus here. When a company wants to go for a public offering, it has to come up with all the details related to the company. The name of the company, where is the place of the business of the company, what business does the company deal with, who are the promoters of the company, and what is the shareholding pattern of the company, who holds equity, where is the company having debts, all that. This is the prospectus. Draft red herring prospectus is nothing but the company comes out with all of these details, but it doesn't specify the share price, the offer price which it is currently going to go with. The name, it is the name red herring because earlier it used to be written in red bold letters, just like the note that we have. So this, it would be written in red bold letters that the so and so company is going for offer for sale, and the number of shares listed and the offer is not final. This is just a draft document and it can change until it becomes the final prospectus. The terms and conditions of the document would change, so it would be written in the red bold letters. That's why the name red herring prospectus. Once the draft red herring prospectus is submitted to the SEBI goes through all the details. It verifies whether the details given have been true, and then it approves the prospectus. Once the prospectus gets approved, it becomes the final prospectus or the red herring prospectus. Till then it would be the draft. Just like the basic difference between draft and a final document, it's the same when it comes to a prospectus too. So this is how the draft red herring prospectus of LIC would look. On the first page, it would give the details about the company, who are the promoters, who are the associate banks related to the IPO, and all other details. And in one of the details, the company also has to detail about the probable risks that the company is facing. What are the risks that the company is facing, so that the investor should be aware before investing into that particular company. So in the risk factors, the LIC has talked about the IDBI Bank. The IDBI Bank was making losses. So the government, which holds the majority stake in LIC, it made LIC purchase 51% stake in the IDBI Bank. At that time, LIC became the major shareholder, and the IDBI Bank became a subsidiary of LIC. A subsidiary is a company when there is a holding company and there is another company called subsidiary company. Subsidiary company is when a company, holding company or a parent company, holds majority stake in another company, majority stake, that particular company is called a subsidiary of this parent company. For example, we have the Tata Group. Under the Tata Groups, which are managed by the Tata Trust, there are so many subsidiary companies. We have the TCS, we have the Tata Motors. So all these companies are majorly held by the, major shares are held by the Tata Group. So they are the subsidiaries of the Tata Group. Similarly, we have the Reliance Group. In the Reliance industry, we have Jio, we have companies related to petrochemicals. So all those companies are subsidiary companies of the group. And the company which holds the major stake is called the holding company or the parent company. But if a company holds a minority stake, which is less than 51%, then that company is called a associate company of that parent company. So the basic difference is when it holds the majority stake, this particular company is called a subsidiary of the parent company. When the parent company holds minority stake in the company, it is called, this particular company is called the associate company of the holding company. Now, earlier when LIC invested, it was holding 51% stake, so it was the IDBI was the subsidiary of the LIC. After that, LIC divested its shares, and now the shareholding of LIC has come to 49%. Because of this, the IDBI Bank has become a associate company of the LIC. So coming back to the red herring prospectus, in the risk factors, LIC has listed IDBI Bank as a risk factor because previously the IDBI Bank was incurring losses and LIC had to pump in capital to keep the bank floating. And recently, the IDBI Bank came out of the corrective framework put by the RBI for dealing with NPIs. The Cabinet Committee also approved strategic disinvestment in the IDBI. Strategic disinvestment is when you are ready to fail the management control, majority stake in the company. It is called strategic disinvestment. So, if IDBI goes for strategic disinvestment in future, the management would be transferred. So the new management would get new funds and new technology and the management best practices into IDBI so that IDBI could perform better in future. That would make the IDBI's banks dependence on LIC to come down. So because of this, the credit rating firm ICRA has said that the risk for the LIC in future if the IDBI goes for strategic investment would be less. And also recently the IDBI bank has shown some profits, increase in the net profits, so that it won't affect the LIC IPO that much, is the opinion of this rating agency. That's about this article. Thank you so much.